Unboxing the Red Magic 5S, yet another complete and utter monster in this phone. Literally specs and hardware that you can't find anywhere else. Lucky enough to unbox the Red Magic 5X, which is just a monster of a smartphone in every single aspect. The hardware, the specs, everything is literally as much as you can get. So a unique box for a unique phone, and certainly the Red Magic definitely does get beaten on the specs sheet by various other phones in various other areas, but that is not really what this phone is about. If you take a look at the core specs, you have the Snapdragon 865, you have 55-watt charging. So yeah, they do get beaten. The Plus version of the Snapdragon is out there. There's 65, even 100+ watt charging right now. However, this phone isn't all about the specs, but rather about being specialized for gaming. So one of the main things of this phone is you get those triggers on the side, which you'll see in a second. In the box, you get the usual rubber case, which has some extra support on the edges, which I think is quite cool. You'll also get this really cool red wired charger. It's USB-C, of course, into USB-A. 55-watt charging with this phone is the max, although it does come with an 18-watt charger in the box. Just to let you know, you do have to purchase that 55-watt charger separately, either from Red Magic or you could get a third-party one. The design stands out and it is an evolution from what Red Magic have done in the past. What I really love about this design is the matte finish on the back. And it is a big phone. This is a gaming phone and it makes no apologies for it. As you can see, the design, it really doesn't care about the camera. You do have a triple camera setup and you'll see some images from that in a second. It's a big phone, it is a gaming phone and it makes no apologies. It's a 6.65 inch display, so certainly there are some bigger smartphones out there, but this really does seem to be the sweet spot for a lot of phones these days. It is way bigger and thicker though. You do have bezels at the top and bottom. And take a look at this. Not every phone has this. You have these grills on the side. There is an actual fan inside this phone to keep it cool when you're gaming and even when you're charging. So as you can see, the power button is way lower than other phones. It's right down almost below the first half of the phone. You have the volume rocker above that, the fan, and then where you can see the actual air triggers, which are really, really awesome. If you play games on your phone, if that is important for you, those air triggers are absolutely insane, to be honest. They really do work, especially in PUBG. And as you can see on the other side, you have another grill for the fan. You have the dock connector for the Game Center dock. And you also have the Game Center button. As you can see, that red switch up there, as soon as you switch that on, it goes into Game Center. As you can see, this is the international version as well. Google Play, all the Google services loaded as standard. So just really good to point that out. And I will leave some links below in the description if you want to go and check out the international version. You also get the headphone jack, which for a gaming phone is an absolute must. So thank you, Nubia, for putting it in the Red Magic. As I said, 6.65 inch display, OLED, 1080p. It's a full HD display, but 144 hertz refresh rates. So you are covered pretty much for the future, for anything that any app, any game can throw at you right now. 144 hertz is going to cover you. It can be switched down to 90 hertz as well, and also 60 hertz to save some battery. But 144 hertz is a great spec, and it just does feel ultra smooth when you're flicking through the system. I would say actually the bezels seem and feel a little bit smaller than the Black Shark 3, which I also unboxed and reviewed. I would say all in all the bezels seem a tiny bit smaller than that for sure, but again, it's a big phone and this is just not for everyone. But if you are into gaming, then you are gonna deal with those bezels for the very good speakers. Not dual front-facing stereo speakers, but they are stereo speakers. The earpiece doubles as a speaker and you get the bottom firing speaker as well. The fingerprint sensor is placed under the display and actually it's really close to the bottom of the phone. Some phones have the fingerprint sensor almost halfway up the phone. This thing is down right near the bottom bezel. I don't think there's any good or bad in terms of the placement, but just interesting to note that this one is lower than most others that I've tried. Honestly though, the 144 hertz refresh rate display is just amazing. I thought 120 was good. Is there a difference between 144 hertz? Well, yes, technically there is. Maybe you don't notice it, but certainly you just get the best spec for this phone, and I would certainly take the 144 hertz with a full HD display over a quad HD with 60. That's just me though, but certainly when you're gaming, you don't really notice the difference in resolution. At least I don't, but the refresh rate just makes everything so smooth. Now, of course, not every game that you play is going to be able to support 144 hertz, but at least you have it for the games that do. And in the future, when games do update and move to higher refresh rates, you are covered with this phone. You do get stereo sound, so the sound comes out of the front earpiece and the bottom speaker. If you cover them, the sound does go in, so it doesn't come out of the grills at the side where the fan is, but certainly it is a good sound anyway. Now, when it comes to the cameras, you get a main, ultra wide, and a 2 megapixel macro sensor from what I can see. Now, it's not a massive aspect of the phone, but the 64 megapixel IMX686 from Sony is a decent sensor. I personally think that the colors and the rendering of these images could be better, but I guess the camera in a gaming phone isn't going to be the most focused on aspect. And I would say once you start zooming in, the colors do get a little bit different from the main camera. The main camera is decent. The night mode is pretty good as well. 4K video is a very good thing. It does go up to 60 FPS in 4K. You do also get 8K resolution at 15 frames a second. I'm not sure why that would be useful at 15 frames a second, but it is there. Although I do like the camera app in terms of the pro modes. Now, as you can see me zooming in here, and with video, it's the same. But with Pro mode, there are some definite advantages. Now, you have to go into Pro mode to actually activate the ultra wide angle camera, which is kind of odd. I would like that in the photo mode, but hey, it's in there. Just switch to Pro mode and you get to switch to the ultra wide camera. There are some really good Pro and manual controls in this though, and it's right in the camera app, which I like. There's also something called Camera Family as well, which is essentially all of those features that they don't want to put in the app directly. As you can see here, me just playing around with them. There are tons of different features in the app. There's some pretty cool things. You can play around with them. I would really just stick to the main image sensor. I think that is where you get the best results. So 64 megapixel main image sensor, and you can change a lot of the images in terms of the styles in the native camera app as well. You do also get slow motion up to 480 frames a second as well. That's in 720p, and you do get 240 frames a second in full HD, which is definitely a good thing. Overall, I would call it a decent performer. Certainly not the main aspect of this phone though. And something really cool when you do charge this phone is one of the unique aspects is this fan that's actually placed in the phone, and it actually makes a noise when you start charging. So if you can hear that, that is actually what it sounds like. When you start charging this phone, the fan turns on to keep the phone cool, and they say you can charge it quicker like that. Here is the Geekbench, and yeah, it's pretty average for a Snapdragon 865. But you have these unique features when it comes to gaming. It's not just the chipset, it's the phone, it's the hardware. It is the big stereo speakers, which do help. Obviously, you can play extreme settings in PUBG. That is a given for a gaming phone. As you can see, if you just switch that red button, then you go into gaming mode and you have all of the extra hardware features that you can get. So for example, you have the air triggers, which are just awesome. And you can basically map those to any area that you want. As you can see, as soon as you turn them on, then they do start playing in PUBG, and they're just right there. They're so convenient. This is one of the best features of the phone for me. If you do enjoy gaming at all, which I do on occasion, those air triggers are simply amazing. You can move those to anywhere you want on the screen, so you can pretty much remap them anywhere, and it just makes playing PUBG so much easier. You can just aim in and fire straight away. You don't have to move your thumbs around the screen. It really is just a practical way to actually just be better at this game. Obviously, gaming is absolutely what this entire phone is designed for. So you have the fan in there to keep things cool when you're gaming. And that means the processor can just pump out at the highest rate without throttling. You have the fan in there. You also just have a big phone with some other cooling methods as well. So definitely some very good hardware features for gaming if you're into it. The trigger buttons have a touch sensitivity of 320 Hertz. So you're getting some really good feedback on those. And I do like the fact that they're just built into the phone. They don't pop up. They don't get in the way. They're just there. When you don't use them, they're not in the way. Now, there are some phones that do have dual facing stereo speakers, for example, the ROG phone. So just to keep in mind, but certainly the bezels on this one are a little bit smaller. And though even it's a big phone, but certainly not as big as some other gaming phones. So that might be a consideration for you. Thanks for watching this one, guys. Let me know what you think of the Redmatic 5S in the comments. Definitely a monster phone, and for some people, definitely the right phone. As always, let me know what you think in the comments. That's it for now, though. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you liked it, and I'll see you in the next one.